How do you react when God calls you to move? When He calls you to lay down everything and to abandon your goals and pursue His? Maybe you've never thought about it. Many put it off, or since they got saved, they don't have to do anything and can just stay where they're at. Never moving, never growing, and pretending everything is fine. Putting off what you know you should do while doing what you think is best for you. That's where I was at, fresh out of high school, full of high hopes. I was finally out of the grip of my parents, and nobody could tell me what to do. But I was also stuck in a dead end I had put myself in. Living in a little town named Bushnell, with maybe 150 people living there, in a trailer house with a buddy of mine. It was at this point that everything was just gray. I was at a point of complete apathy, and I couldn't find the drive to do much of anything. I looked into the potential future and saw nothing. And I just couldn't bring up the energy to care. The result of that was I barely talked to my roommate, didn't do my part around the house, and balked at simple tasks because I was bitter at life. It culminated to the point that I was told to move out of the place I was living at, and lo and behold, a short few months after moving out, I was living back in my mom's basement. My mindset all throughout high school was odd. You see, I believed in Jesus, thought God existed, but I was tired of being alone, and this Christianity thing didn't seem to win a lot of friends. I wanted to be accepted, and I wanted someone to care. So I decided in my vast wisdom that I would go my own way for a while and try to be accepted by acting like everyone else. It was shortly after being kicked out that I came across some apologetics videos. They interested me, and so I started to look more and more into them. I started to realize there was more to Christianity than what I had grown up with. And as I began to think about it more, if this is true, and the evidence I had found certainly pointed that direction, then it's something to take very seriously and not with the casualness I had before. And while I was still sort of following the Christian lifestyle early in high school, I felt like God had been pushing me to join the military. And even though I had very much strayed in those years, that stuck with me. And so when I fully committed my life to Jesus, that was still in my thought. And it felt like that was where I was being led. And so I'm an all or nothing person. And so the same thing happened with this. I wanted to join the Navy SEALs. Never mind me being scrawny, never mind me being the fact that I never really committed to anything in my life. Because if anything was going to fix me, it's going to be this. And when I was debating whether or not God wanted me to go into the SEALs, I felt like God was telling me to go for it. This honestly terrified me, and I had no idea what I was doing. Never did sports in high school, and I never really tried to do anything, and I didn't want to fail. It was in a car ride headed back home. I made my decision, and I made a promise. I told God, no matter what, if you tell me to move, I'll move, or I'll make my best attempt. After that, I moved to Scottsbluff, and I began training to become a Navy SEAL. There's an illusion that once you become a Christian, everything becomes easier. That was not the case. My life got so much more complicated and much more difficult. Those months consisted of the gym, working, and studying in my free time. I would listen to sermons at work, and I would listen to lectures about psychology, philosophy, and theology. And as I finally began to think I had gotten somewhat of a grip on things, I was figuring things out, I hit a wall. The drive to become a SEAL just wasn't there. I knew if I wasn't 100% committed, I would fail. But I had said I was going to do this, and so I was going to do it, whether I felt I could or not. So I prayed about it. Do I continue with this, or do you have other plans for me? And eventually I got my answer. In not so many words, God had told me he had other plans for me. Now, I'd like to say that I took God's words with grace and fully accepted them, full-heartedly accepted them. But the truth is, I was very angry and confused and hurt. Here I was 6 months living in isolation so that I could focus on getting to where I needed to be. I didn't want to start something just to leave shortly after, so I isolated myself. And all that build up for 4 years, certain that's where God wanted me to go. All for it to be ripped out from underneath me in a blink of an eye. I feel like I had the rug pulled out from underneath me, and I had no idea what I was doing with my life. I had no plans, no certainty, and no idea what I was going to do. And I wandered aimlessly for months. I thought about what the point of it all was. And as I began to look back to where I started, I realized the distance I had traveled, how far I'd grown and how much I'd learned in that period of pain. And now, as God has brought me to Summit, I've matured even more, and I've realized the importance of that challenge, and part of why I was led to where it wasn't necessarily pleasant, but it was necessary. And God's leading me in directions that I think are more challenging than the one I was going to before. But that challenge of God leading me in that direction deepened my faith and allowed me to follow where God wants me to go. And I'm not yet to the point where God needs me to be. I have a lot to learn and a lot of room to grow. And I have a long road ahead and a lot of challenges. And I don't even know where it'll all end up, but that's part of faith and trust. To allow yourself to be led where God wants you to be and not where you want to be. Ultimately, He knows much better than us. And while yes, where He wants you is for your best, I'm starting to learn it's not about me, where it would be best for me to be. But in the situations I dread being in, that's where God needs me, needs you. Because it's not about you or me. It's about helping others and furthering God's kingdom.